This episode of the podcast is brought to you by our new sponsor, Impact Tactical. They're a tactical outfitter for first responders and military. Me, guys, personally, I can vouch for them and their quality service. I've used them for the last 11 years of my career. Be sure to check them out at impacttactical.com. That's M-P-A-K tactical.com. And be sure to tell them that Two Cops, One Donut sing. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by HRH Combat Arms. They can turn your vision into reality. They specialize in gunsmithing and Cerakoting. Your Cerakote specialist is Air Force veteran and retired police sergeant Paul Ware, a.k.a. the Sarge. He can Cerakote your firearms, auto parts, tools, even your sports equipment. This veteran-owned business is located at 5025 Saunders Suite 103, Fort Worth, Texas 76119. You can call them at 682-304-0363, and you can find them online at www.hrhcombatarms.com. That's www.hrhcombatarms.com. All right, welcome back. Two Cops, One Donut. I am your host, Eric Levine. I had a brain fart there for a second. I was like, what does the time say? Those watching, you're going to see me freeze up for a second. I was like, yeah. So welcome back, Two Cops, One Donut. I am your host, Eric Levine. With me today, I have the Commander, Joe Shaefer. This is the highest ranking person I think I've had when it comes to police. How you doing, Joe?
Excellent. Thanks for having me on the show, Eric.
Hey, not a problem. Joe reached out to me. He's got a book. He's got some stuff going on in his life. So, Joe, the one of the points of this show, which you may have looked into, may not have, is community relations. Us improving the relationship between police and the community and first responders and military and all that stuff, all trying to work together to basically get things past where we've been stuck, it seems, since I want to say basically the 70s, it feels like. I've been in law enforcement about 17 years, and I feel like we haven't done anything different to get things changed. Nothing revolutionary, I should say.
Right.
And social media, these podcasts, stuff like that, I think it's a good way to talk and educate people on like guys like you, who's kind of high up in the command chain. Guys like me, kind of low. I'm not an officer anymore. I'm a detective, but it's a different perspective at each level, and it's a different perspective for each officer and each individual. So if we can educate from our side of the house and then hear voices from the other side of the house and things of that nature, I think that is a new way to get this message out as far as podcasting and Instagram and Facebook and all the other types of social medias out there. In a long-form discussion, which you and I are about to have. But before we get down all your book and all the cool stuff that you got going on, I want people to fall in love with Joe Shaefer. So, sir, where are you from, and how did you get in law enforcement?
Okay, I've been born and raised in South Florida, where I am currently. My love for law enforcement sparked back as a young child. My dad was a police officer for the Miami Beach Police Department, and just watching him his entire career and seeing all the good things and all the morals and values he instilled in me, and it was always something I wanted to do, and then at the age of 14 I became a police explorer for a South Florida agency, and from there I became a service aide, then an officer, and then here I am today, many years later.
What is a service aide?
A service aide, I'm not sure if you guys have them. Some call them police service aides, some call them community service aides. They handle non-emergency calls. Usually they have double amber lights, like they handle traffic crashes. Back when I was doing it, we actually did delayed burglaries. Anything where a suspect wasn't on scene, okay, or wasn't like a felony, we would respond.
Okay, we do have something like that, just slightly different title. Yeah, that definitely helps keep officers from getting wrapped up on report calls and stuff like, because that's usually what they are. There's some sort of report call that you don't need an officer, you don't need a sworn officer to handle. So yeah, I think that's smart. But yeah, South Florida, huh? So
pretty busy.
Land of the awesome Cuban press sandwich, which is my absolute favorite.
Yeah, my wife's Cuban, so I married it to make sure that I get it as often as I want them.
Smart man. I love my wife, but I did not know about Cuban food till way, way, way later in life. I think I had my first Cuban meal around 34, 35 years old.
Oh, wow.
So I missed out on a lot. You know what really turned me on to South Florida was the TV show Dexter.
Yeah, it's a good show.
Like the nightlife that it always showed and portrayed on there. I'm just like, that looks like a good, like it's adult nightlife. It's not a bunch of college kids like trying to get as hammered as they can. It's like dancing in the streets and listening to good live music and stuff like that.
Right.
Very cool. So you have family in law enforcement. So your dad was in it. That's awesome because I'm in the same boat. My dad is in law enforcement as well.
Oh, awesome.
What I have found is, and I tell people this, my dad was a part of why I got in law enforcement, but I wouldn't say he was the main factor. Is that the case for you?
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with that. It's a pretty good statement. I think it's something, I think at times he tried to push me away from it, actually, you know, with the ever changing system, you know, and things, you know, especially here in Miami in the 80s, things that were going on, you know, these are all stuff my old man went through. Yeah. So being exposed to that and everything he went through, he just was trying to push me away from it, but that wasn't going to happen. You know, sometimes, you know, you and I both know that sometimes it kind of feels like it chose you. You know what I mean? I feel like I'm in that boat. Yeah,
absolutely. I wasn't sure what type of cop I was going to be, whether it was going to be FBI, ATF, whatever. So whatever three-letter agency you can think of. But the older I got and the more focused I got, I realized city police was what I really wanted to do. And I haven't looked back since then. But yeah, my dad, you know, is a big factor. I can't say he wasn't, but if people ask me, well, that's why you became a cop. No, actually, it really wasn't. If anything, it was how my family, like during family reunions, who did everybody respect and flock to? It would be my dad. It would be my grandfather, who was a firefighter. It'd be my cousin, who was, you know, active duty military, and my other cousin, who was a statey, and, you know, like that's who everybody respected and seemed like they flocked to. And so for me, that was kind of how I got. That's really what pushed me towards that. And then, you know, obviously I served in the military. Did you do any military time?
No, unfortunately not.
Unfortunately, don't say that.
Yeah, you kind of look back at it, and I kind of wish I did, but I was so anxious, you know, to join the PD that, you know, I became an explorer in middle school and never really looked back. Just kind of kept going until here I am. Yeah. So explorers, for those that aren't aware, explorer programs are really cool. They run through junior high, I think is how some of them start. And they go through any legitimate explorer program. They actually get to take part in real police training. Now they're not in the academy with real police. They're with all the other high school kids or junior high kids being instructed by police officers and going through the programs like that. And they get a lot of good police skill. I was an academy instructor for 3 years, and we've had some explorers come through that turned police officer, and you can tell the ones right away that have been explorers and did it for a long time, because you're going through and they're handling scenario after scenario after scenario like a boss. And you're just like, damn, like that's a good answer. Oh, that's a good answer. You know, and they're fresh babies, like 20 years old, turning 21 in the academy. If you've got kids that you think are interested in police work and they need to get a realistic view of what that life's going to be like, I highly recommend explorer programs. In Florida, obviously, you liked yours. It was good enough for you that you went all the way through. Absolutely.
So that's very cool. How old are you?
I'm 38 years old.
Okay, so we're about the same age. I'm just turned 39. So, all right, that makes sense, brother. Well, okay, so South Florida cop. You went. What year did you go through the academy?
I went in 2005.
Okay, so 2005, I signed up for active duty the very next year. So you go through in 2005. Now, policing has changed immensely since you came through, since you went through the academy. You were pre-body camera. You were, Taser was still kind of feeling out their role. Pepper spray in itself had 18 million different chemical makeups because nobody could quite get the recipe under agreement. And what I mean for those listening to that, you had OC that was oil based. You had OC that was water vapor based. You had OC that was flammable, I think, for a little bit. So you had to be careful. You had to figure out
at the same time they're getting sprayed.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. Don't tase somebody while they're getting pepper sprayed. Now you can, as long as you have a water soluble OC. Right. So you got to make sure you're checking that stuff, guys. But yeah, you came through in a hard you went through the hardest transition, in my opinion, that police have gone through in a long time. And that was coming through with the body cameras and the social media movement. Cause none of that stuff was really there. What? Right. Facebook wasn't there till 2009 ish, I think. So
we did have MySpace.
Yes.
So we had a little bit something.
We did have MySpace.
Not quite the same caliber, but
yeah,
we had something.
You could upload your favorite song to your page. And then everybody's like, oh, that's cool. Yeah, I remember that. That was my favorite. Oh, you listen to Incubus. Oh, that's cool. We're dating ourselves. All right. So going through that in South Florida, what is the community support like in Florida for police?
It's, we're a pretty good mix-up, and a lot of things that we're doing in South Florida, I think could be replicated across the country, and a lot of our issues that we had with the rioting and stuff, a lot of these folks were from out of town, and we did, of course, we've had incidences here that, sparked, as we all know, in the 80s, where we've had some incidences that caused these type of reactions from the community, which were well based on what, it was much needed. This type of response that had the agencies looking into what exactly was going on and trying to find a way to figure it out, the issues that were going on in some of these agencies.
Yeah. So I was a cop up in Michigan, came down to Texas. The difference in citizen support is night and day. Down here in the South, it's very, very pro-police. And you see that in the attitudes of the officers that you work around. The morale is a lot higher. Cops are trying to do the right thing all the time. And if you're listening, like, well, why aren't cops always trying to do the right thing all the time? Well, in a city where you're not supported by police or by the citizens, like, you start to see that us versus them rise up, because you can't depend on the public to have your back. Whereas in the South, and especially, now that I'm watching Florida, you guys have DeSantis, right? That's the dude from Florida. Yep. That dude's making waves across the country.
Yes, he is.
So, I mean, shoot, he turned his back on Disney.
Yeah, I don't know how that's going to work out.
I heard Texas is trying to get Disney to come over here now. Could you imagine that? Come to Texas for Disney World? I don't think
that's incredible. I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't think I like that. Could you imagine standing in line in Texas in the sun out with that blacktop? You'd melt. I know it gets hot in Florida, but at least y'all have a breeze, being occasionally close to the water and whatnot. All right. So you go through in 2005. Walk me through your career. What was your path?
So I would actually start as a motorman in a small city in Miami-Dade County. And from there, after a couple of years, a new agency had started in Miami-Dade County. I wanted to be a part of it, which I did. I joined. And I spent some time there on the road, quite a bit of years, actually. And then I made a decision to go back to motors, which I did. I went back to motors, did traffic homicide for a while. Then after that, I became the acting supervisor of property crimes. And then shortly, I know I had to figure I'd have that response after hearing the other podcast. After serving in property crimes, I was asked to transfer to violent crimes, where I did that for a little bit. I was then promoted to sergeant and went back to the road. Did my time on the road. And then I was asked to transfer back to violent crimes as a supervisor, which I did. And while there, did a short stint there, and then I was transferred to homicide, where I spent some time in homicide as a sergeant, and then I was promoted to commander and moved into professional compliance.
Nice.
Where I'm at now.
Okay. So for citizens listening, violent crime is that's the cream of the crop for cops. It doesn't mean that, if you're a victim of a property crime versus, it doesn't mean anything's taken less serious or whatever, but the thing that most citizens are concerned about is violent crime, especially homicide or crimes against children. Those are like the top two, in my opinion. I don't know how you feel on that, sir.
I have to agree with that.
But yeah, but that's, you know, I love property crimes, and part of it is because you're starting from scratch a lot of times on trying to find somebody. In violent crimes, not always, but the majority of the time, there are suspects, there are links that you can get to quicker. So part of my bragging in a properties crimes, like, we found a VCR with no clues, you know, they're like, a VCR, like, that's just part of the joke. But no, violent crimes is serious, and if you are being put in charge of violent crimes, you are well respected in your department. So you guys hearing Joe right now, I want you to take it from me. If he is being put in charge of violent crimes, he's got his shit together. So me and Joe have never met other than just correspondence through emails and stuff like that. So that's impressive, especially in South Florida, because the populations down there are no joke. Those are major departments down there. So congrats first. That's pretty badass. That's a different path than the one I will be taking. I'm trying to go more, if I can do it, either more real-time crime or intel type based stuff.
That's definitely needed.
Yeah. Behind the scenes. Just because I can find all the information that helps him get to close his case. And that's fun for me. I don't have all the political pressure that he will have. So,
or you mean do have?
Yes, do have. Yeah, my bad. Yeah, now that you're a commander. So what was that last thing that you said you were in now? You're...
Professional compliance. I oversee internal affairs and the training unit.
Okay. I don't envy you on that either. So, okay. So being over violent crime, what would you say the community outreach, like when something serious happens, obviously let's go simple, a homicide of just Joe Blow citizen, nobody high profile or anything like that. What is the community outreach, political pressure and stuff that you have to deal with?
I mean, with any agency, I think it's kind of faced the same. You know, they want to eradicate the violence from their cities, and that goes, you know, my own city and cities I work and cities I visit. Nobody wants to visit or live in an unsafe area where these incidents occur, you know. And unfortunately, it's a very small pocket of people that are committing the crimes and become next week's victims, you know, majority of the time. Of course, we have innocent people every now and then that unfortunately are stuck, you know, they get hurt or killed. But, you know, a lot of the violence that we do see is repeat offenders.
Yeah, criminal versus criminal.
Right.
Yeah.
At least down here, you know, I'm not sure what happens.
I think that's par for the course. It's a lot of, you know, drug dealer versus drug dealer, or territory issues, gang issues, you know, gang versus gang. And unfortunately, there are some I call them true victims, ones that just doing their, you know, they go to work every day, they don't commit crimes, and speeding may be their worst sin that they got out there. Those are who guys like you are out there fighting for. Now, while you got to that path, were you a homicide detective?
No, I was traffic homicide, which was attached to homicide at the time.
Okay. So
it's a little bit of a different investigation, a little more math involved.
Yes. So those listening, I want you to kind of understand, like, when I put a report together for a property crimes issue, and it's beginning to end case closed, I arrest the guy and all that stuff. My report is about, on a difficult case, 3 to 4 pages long that I wrote myself, not including like the officers involved in the investigation. How long were your reports, sir?
Well, I'm going to say that our table of contents were usually 3 to 4 pages. And then, I mean, I'm just being honest.
I know. I want people to understand the levels that we're dealing with when this is what I'm getting to. So your reports, like he said, his the beginning part, just telling you what everything's in there. Table of contents is 3 to 4 pages. Now, my entire report is 3 to 4 pages. When people are demanding video, when they're demanding what's the key phrase they all like today? Transparency. When we're demanding transparency instantaneously, you have to understand that doing that can jeopardize what this man's talking about putting together. So that's something I want people to kind of understand. So for you who handled reports at the highest level, that's the highest level for people listening, especially traffic homicide, because not only do you have to solve the case of the homicide and all the factors in it, you also have to recreate the accident and show like whether it was intentional, not intentional, all that stuff. Like he said, a lot of math involved. That's why I never did anything with accident recreation. Although they do make good money once they get out of police work.
Yeah, but most of us, once we walk away from it, we don't even want to look at a calculator again.
I hear you. So on that, how can you explain to people, or maybe it's in favor of transparency, how much does giving information out affect a case?
So the best way I could describe it is if it's something that can jeopardize the integrity of the investigation itself, it can't be released. It absolutely can't. You know, I know we had a few hit and run accidents that were fatalities, and we had a pretty good idea who did it. You know, and we were just getting hounded by people wanting to know who the subject is, or they wanted suspect information, and we knew that giving out just the wrong information can signal to that person that we may know who they are. And that's enough where they can catch a plane ticket out of here, gone. People think that we have these abilities to stop people in their tracks, and we really don't. You know, we have a lot of resources that we utilize, but it's not like the movies. We can't just make a phone call and shut down an airport.
Right. Put them on the no-fly list.
Right. It's not going to work that way.
Right. Yeah. I think it's important because I think as cops, and I love transparency, and I love that police work has changed to the point where I can take my body cam and upload it within the next 10 minutes, and I can potentially share stuff that's important that I think the public needs to get to. But what I want people to understand, and from guys like you, is that the information we put out there are so many rules. There's so much red tape. Like if there's a juvenile in the video that we took and we didn't notice it, that's a lawsuit later on that we have to deal with, because you can't just show, well, in my state anyway, you can't show juveniles, you know, people may be giving out personal or medical information. That's also a no-go. You can't show that stuff. So all of that stuff takes manpower to go through the video. You have to basically scrub a video is what I call it. You scrub the video, meaning you go through and you make sure that you're not violating somebody else's rights to give the people transparency who have nothing to do with the case.
Right.
So
no, I understand. That makes sense.
So I've had this idea. You tell me what you think. Make video available, if it won't jeopardize the investigation, to the family. Ask them if they want to see it. And that's as far as it needs to go. Why does it need to go to anybody else?
I mean, I don't see why that would hurt. If it doesn't jeopardize the integrity of it, you know, now there can be an issue that if it's a subject known,
right, retaliation,
retaliate before we have a chance to lock that person up. You know, that could be a problem.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It all depends. Every case is different. You know, it all depends on the circumstances of the case. You know, and I think a lot of when we're hearing transparency from the community, a lot of it they're not referring to active criminal cases. They're talking about incidences and that are occurring between law enforcement and the community versus, you know, our criminal investigations, referring to internal affairs complaints or any accusations against officers. I think that's where the coin term of transparency is being utilized the most now.
Yes.
And I think that's kind of where,
yeah.
You know, it is, and that's the whole purpose of my book. You know, it's to inspire the uncomfortable conversations, to talk about the elephant in the room that most people shy from, and they don't want to talk about it. You know, and unfortunately, that's I guess where we are now, and hopefully we can break those barriers down.
Well, that sounds like a good segue, sir. That's perfect. So you wrote a book.
Yes, I did.
And
Called Police Fragility.
all right. Well, in the interest of transparency and making better relationships with the community, we'll explain your book and tell me how it benefits police and the community.
Well, the book itself is got a lot of research in it, and the first few chapters go quite a bit into American history, and you can correct me if you think I'm wrong with some of the things, because not everybody's on the same page as me.
Okay.
But a lot, especially at the police academy, any further leadership academy courses that people take, or anything of that matter, any advanced training that we do, it all comes down to our history as the American policing system. We were told that it started in the early 1900s, and we're being told that the policing system is a blueprint from Sir Robert Peel's Bobbies, which we like to coin as the modern day policing, right? Which is what we discuss to the new officers, and that's right. This is the history we're proud of. This is the history that we talk about. This is the history we project on to our recruits, that we've projected on probably as far as the last living officer today can remember. That's what we're told, and when you're in the academy, you hear these great things that we've done as law enforcement officers, which we have. We've done some amazing things. We've pretty much, performed miracles on the streets, but for some reason we don't talk about the elephant in the room, which is law enforcement from the 1700s all the way up to the 1900s. And then we don't talk about when we were enforcing the Jim Crow laws, all the issues of, in the 1700s, we were organized by the government to work for slave patrols and stuff of this nature. Things that we don't talk about. We don't talk to our recruits about. So when these recruits don't know the truth about American policing history, they come on the streets, and then they come across an American citizen, whether they're black or white or whatever color, and they make contact with somebody whose family history has a deep-seated distrust with us, right? No fault of our own. They come into contact with us, and now that person has a different outlook on us, and there's an altercation, right? There's mouthing off, there's disrespect, which we respond in some cases equal to that, right? Let's be honest, there's officers out there that'll disrespect back. Instead of being the bigger person or trying to figure it out, they just respond back, and then things get escalated, right? So if we can, as the American policing system, understand and educate ourselves on the true history of the American policing system, maybe we can be more empathetic and understand that there are people alive today who were alive during segregation. They've been mistreated by officers because of the color of their skin, right? And there's some areas that's still going on today. So it's very difficult for us to build, and I always hear the term being coined of rebuilding trust in some of the communities. It's not rebuilding, it's building. We've never had it to begin with.
Right.
So we have to think outside the box. And I think, what you're doing is amazing. I think the podcast is a great idea. The community outreach, let people see this side of us, what we know. Things are changing. People don't realize it because we're not as public as people want us to be. But things in my agency are certainly changed. They have changed, and I'm sure you could say the same. There are things that are going on in the movement of change, but there are things that we can do, which my book does point out, that we can strengthen that bond of trust with the community. So
let me see if I'm hearing you correctly, because what I'm getting from what you've told me so far is through avoiding, whether it be intentional or not, the history of policing, if we do get into, and I'm on track with you, by the way, I actually agree with this, if this is where you're going,
right?
If we show that negative side, that cultural indoctrination of where these separations came from, this us versus them, whatever you want to call it, new officers they go out and they're not so blindsided. They're not so white knighting when they go out. Like,
Absolutely.
Like, hey, look it, we're out here. We signed up to be police because we wanted to do good, and this is what we're known for. Like, yes, you're not wrong. Yes, that is part of it, but you have to understand this whole other side that, like you said, policing and rounding up slaves back in the day, like that was a thing. And I say policing goes back even farther than the 17. I think policing has always been a natural thing, whether it's
appointed or not. Right,
appointed or community leader or the alphas or whatever you wanted to call them. Policing started in that form or fashion, and it had always had a level of corruption because powers that be, and it continuously got better. It would have its dips and stuff, but it was constantly rising, and I think it's still rising. And just like you said, a way to help fix things, because like I said, for me, I think we kind of hit this ceiling, and nobody's coming up with new ways to make it better. They're actually using old ways that we kind of got away from, and they're going back like, oh wait, that shit worked then, and we just didn't realize it.
It just keeps going, and it keeps coming full circle around. There's only we gotta do something different.
Yes, and I like that idea of at least bringing some of that historical education back in to really show where some distrust came from, whether it's irrelevant today or not. Because and I'm not saying people need to go out there and have white guilt or anything like that. Like, we had nothing to do with what happened in the past, but perspective. You cannot go wrong with perspective. And having that perspective of, even though the person you're dealing with may not have lived through segregation, but their mom did or their grandparents did, and that was handed down, and whether directly or indirectly. I have a fear of tornadoes. I've never actually been through a tornado. Why? Because my grandfather was terrified of them. He went through an F5.
See?
And anytime there was a tornado, he overreacted. Now I overreact, and now it's on my kids. There's a thunderstorm, and they overreact. So it's the same type of idea that I'm getting to, is like, yes, this person you're dealing with did not face the segregation, the civil rights movement, or prior to that, but it's passed down, whether directly or indirectly. So us teaching that to officers may help them in the streets later on. I don't know if it will or it won't, but we need to try new things. We need to be progressive on it. And I think that's the beauty of police work. We're constantly trying to make things better according to the public. I mean, look at body cameras.
Right.
I mean, that's the most recent thing that I can think of where one incident sparked it, and that ended up being bullshit. But look at how well that turned. I'm talking about, I think it's Ferguson, right? No, was it Ferguson? I think Ferguson's what sparked body cameras. That was where they said
was that the one where
Michael Brown reached in?
I'm not quite sure.
I don't remember. I'm making shit up.
I don't remember which one.
I don't want to misremember. It happens, though. Right. Anyway, there was a police incident that sparked body cameras, just like Rodney King sparked cameras in cars. Like, that was a controversial thing for a while. Like, now that we know video cameras are available, you got to have them in your patrol car. And then now you have body cameras on. And I think, like, I feel naked without a body camera. My body camera...
I think it's helped more officers than it's hurt them.
Yeah, and my body camera protected me today. Someone claiming I was racist. I was like, this is going to save me. I had nothing. I didn't say shit. So I love having the body camera. I think they're amazing. So police are constantly, something bad happens, which is unfortunate, and we adjust to address that and make things better. Where with what you're getting to here in the historical part, I don't think we've ever intentionally kept that out. I just think we lacked the vision of the insight and significance that could bring to officers out in the field.
Well, I think we're finding ourselves in a position where the for the first time, we have a batch of officers in an agency that really had nothing to do with any of that. You know, there's officers that are still alive today that are retired who lived through some of those eras, right? So they're not going to revisit those painful things that they've been involved in or that they may have felt at the time. They don't want to talk about that. They just want to reminisce on the good times, which is understandable. It's human. But it's our responsibility to ensure that anyone who puts that badge on across the country understands everything that badge represents and everything that it's gone through, because it sure as heck went right before, before they put it on, that it's had an image before they put it on.
Right.
And it's our job to make sure it's not tarnished, and that we keep the system moving in the right direction.
I agree. So your book, it dives into the history,
Right.
which obviously, like I was saying, I think that showing where we came from, whether it's the good, bad, the ugly, whatever you want to call it, is beneficial a lot to cops. But what I think is it also shows the community that we're not trying to hide from what we were. I mean, even look at the civil rights movement. There's pictures of cops releasing dogs on
Absolutely
peaceful protesters. Awful. I mean, bad shit. But we're better for it now. And do I wish we could have avoided it? Yeah, but I wasn't alive then. I couldn't change anything then if I wanted to. There's nothing I could do about it. But what we can do is learn from it. And I think every time we have a tragedy or something bad happen, we absolutely learn from it. Even vice versa, when bad things happen to cops. There's a real bad video that cops are showing everywhere of a Vietnam vet that basically guns down an officer, and the officer's giving him chance after chance. Sir. He's to the point he lets the guy grab a gun and point it at him before he does even tries to do anything.
That's an awful video.
That is an awful video, but there's a lot that we learned from it, and training changed because of it. Columbine, terrible. Cops do not wait anymore. We don't sit outside, set up a perimeter, try to make contact. We don't do that anymore. When somebody's actively shooting, you get your ass in there.
Absolutely.
Earn that paycheck. Yeah. So, I'm with you. So what else does the book have to bring, sir?
Well, I touch on, we talked about transparency, which is ironic that you had mentioned it before we even got to it.
I'm like a Nostradamus on this show.
Yeah, I can tell. So, transparency is important, and let's talk about, let's say there is here's a great example, right? You said you're in property crimes, right?
Yes.
Let's say you do a phenomenal job, which I'm sure you do. And
try to.
I want to throw that in there. So let's say you solve about 150 cases in a month, right? Because I'm sure your caseload is out of control, and So you solve that many cases, and you're recognized by your local union, or you're recognized by the agency, and the state attorney catches wind of that, and they're able to prosecute a bunch of cases, make a lot of people happy. And then come next month, the state attorney decides to honor you with an award, right? So you go to this dinner, you have an award. There you are taking a picture with your state attorney and your plaque or whatever they gave you. And then that's it, right? You go back home, you don't know the state attorney, he or she doesn't know you. But at the end of the day, that picture is out there, right? A couple of weeks later, you get involved, God forbid, in an incident where your actions are questioned, to the point where they're looking at you criminally, right?
Right.
So now I want you to put yourself in the shoes of the family of the victim of you, right? Yeah. So now these images of you with the state attorney, would appear. Now remember, we're forgetting that whatever projected image that we have of ourselves and our agency and everybody involved, that's your image, period. There's no, well, it's not what it looks like, because it is what it looks like. And no matter what you say, it'll never change. It is what it looks like, period.
Yep.
So when the family sees a picture of you and the state attorney together, right? And there's all they see is this, wait a second. So now they're saying he's been awarded because he works close with the state attorney to ensure that all his cases are being closed. So there's a good relationship there. So now when you're being prosecuted by that same state attorney's office, it automatically puts doubt of a honest system or an honest process with the family of the victims, and my position is talks about in the book is that we should we should have the judge should be appointing special prosecutors, not just for political affiliates, not for people who are just politically connected or sensitive in nature. They should be for all police officers. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but a special prosecutor is basically a private attorney that is appointed from outside the court by the judge to prosecute the case. Now, that is a fair approach to when prosecuting a case against an officer, and that improves that accountability and transparency. So you're hitting both marks there on someone who every single one of us wearing a badge believes that person does deserve his day or her day in court, and so does the victim. And all we want is the honest process.
Yeah.
But the family and the community, they don't see that. They see the projected image, which we could change. I'm not saying that state attorneys should distance themselves from us. Absolutely not, because we are like colleagues in the criminal justice system. They can't do their job without us. Certainly you, right? You're a detective.
Right.
So, especially nowadays, it's like beyond going. It's like you're pretty much proving the case beyond a reasonable doubt for them, right?
Yeah.
The days
if you want them to take your case
are pretty much gone, right? It's like you're doing everything for them because they're inundated with cases.
Yep.
So you are, in essence, colleagues in the criminal justice system. So when colleague has to hold another colleague responsible, there's an issue with that. And even my agency, when we have an officer who's accused of a felony, or there's an officer involved shooting, or something that we feel that the community is going to question our transparency or our accountability towards our own officer, we'll call in the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, which is a higher law enforcement authority, to investigate the case. Mm-hmm. And we'll follow it to see what's going on. But that's how we show our community our transparency,
right?
That we are allowing an outside entity to investigate it rather than us, and have the image of us sweeping under the rug or any of that stuff that wouldn't occur to begin with. But to take that doubt from the families of those and the victim who's involved.
Okay, so I got two parts I'm trying to keep track in my head. One, I love the idea of a special prosecutor. I never thought of that, because far too often what typically happens in my experience, officer gets involved, let's say in a shooting. First thing that they're trying to do is change a venue. The officer in his defense trying to do change of venue because they don't feel like they're going to get a fair trial in their own area. I shouldn't say always, but that can be a thing. Versus, I don't think you'll necessarily have to worry about a change of venue if the culture changes. Like you said, we can change it now and get that ball rolling. Let's say it takes 10 years, but 10 years down the road, and we're so used to having a special prosecutor come in anytime these things happen, the concern for change of venue may not be there because the citizens are going to have the confidence in that special prosecutor that there's not going to be a conflict of interest. So I think that's fucking brilliant.
You build the trust.
Yes. Mm-hmm. I've never thought of that. And that is anybody out there listening that is not involved in law enforcement, that's something to ponder, something to consider. My brain's churning right now just thinking of how that's an intelligent move, I think. And really, I don't see that doesn't take a lot.
Not at all.
I don't think that takes a lot. So that's cool. Obviously, there needs to be some checks and balances to make sure there's no conflict of interest, but there's that in anything. And then the second part that I wanted to talk about, I got down that rabbit hole. I should have wrote it down. What did we talk about? We talked about the special prosecutor. Damn it. I hate when I do this. My brain gets going and I instantly forget my points that I wanted to make.
It happens here all the time.
Give me a second. I'm reflecting on what we talked about here. So you talked about getting the special prosecutor, how that affects the community relationships. What else did we?
Projected image.
Projected image. Yes. This is what I want to get to. You started talking about handling investigations internally and passing that off to, like your guys' state police, or is that what that is?
Yeah, you could say that. I mean, they consider themselves agents, but
okay.
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah, so like, I think for us, like Department of Public Safety, DPS is our state police, and like anytime that's a major investigation that they don't want internally, we pass it off to them. So because you're in charge of IA, internal affairs, and we're talking about perception, whether you want it to be the perception or not, that's what it is. What do you say? How do you put the public's mind at ease for any internal affairs investigation? Because they automatically are going to assume that's their buddies. They're going to cover up for them.
Right. Like I had mentioned before, if it's a felony, we automatically go to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement to ratify that issue and ensure transparency, which is huge. It absolutely is. You know, it's a phenomenal thing that our chief at the time went with, and she does to this day. As far as ones that don't quite make it to that level, you know, we ensure them that it's going to be dealt with, you know, swiftly, you know, quickly, and that we're going to hold the officer accountable if there is something to hold the officer accountable with. You know, you had mentioned a lot about body cameras, and that's been a godsend for everybody, because a lot of what we're getting, we're able to prove or disprove rather quickly.
Yes.
You know, and constant, you know, believe it or not, communication is everything. And it goes for your cases you're handling at work, even cases that my guys are handling at work. Like when my sergeants have a case and they're investigating an IA, if the victim is continuously to contact, you know, one of my detective sergeants to reference an IA case, and they're refusing to respond back to them or answer them, that right there, you're instilling doubt in that community member's, you know, mindset that there's something going on here, and the distrust is only growing. So it's important. Communication is everything. Insurance, you just got to ensure people that, you know, we're here to do the right thing, and we're here to hold people accountable, you know. And if it's something where, you know, maybe you as the citizen misunderstood what was going on, we're going to educate that person and let them know. And I think when those type of things happen, I think that's the proper way to handle those situations.
Okay, can you explain? I've actually had a guy on here before that had some IA experience and stuff, but can you explain the process of a regular IA investigation? And you can make up whatever example you want. It doesn't have to be a real one, just something similar. For somebody in your shoes who's in charge of the ones doing the investigation, can you kind of explain the process?
Well, where I sit, I have a detective. So first of all, we don't have any officers assigned or detectives assigned to investigate these cases. They're automatically assigned and processed by a supervisor. So the sergeant would be the detective sergeants. So that sergeant would get the case, and they would work it just like they would work any criminal case that they would when they were detectives. And the majority of them have detective and investigative experience. They actually bring their findings and everything to an administrative sergeant who oversees the internal affairs unit. And then it would go to the professional compliance captain, and then it comes to me for oversight. And basically we meet, you know, I meet with them monthly to ensure they're on track with their cases, but the captain and the administrative sergeant but the administrative sergeant will meet with them daily to see where they're going. The captain will do it weekly, and then I'll hit them up monthly to make sure everything's on track and running smoothly.
Okay, so you've got 3 levels of oversight as far as the case goes. And I want people to understand that aren't in our world, what is the penalty if that sergeant or supervisor that is doing that investigation, if he were to get caught trying to help out a friend? Because that's obviously the concern. Oh, they're just going to help out each other. Mm-hmm. If he gets caught doing that, what is the penalty?
It all depends. As far as the agency goes, he or she would be terminated without a doubt. But the case would go to the state attorney's office, whether or not they want to pursue charges. We've seen cases where they may pursue charges and cases where they might not. It all depends on the severity of each case. You know, in any case that we get that has possible criminal charges, we don't even make the decision ourselves. We send it down to the Miami-Dade State Attorney's Office, where they will then make a decision whether they're going to prosecute or not. And that's where we're able also to assist with the transparency. It's like, hey, look, this is what's going on. This is where it's at now. The decision's being made here. And if we do discover that somebody is meddling with the case, they're gonna be held accountable very quickly.
Yes. And that's kind of the point I want people to get on this, is that we're not talking about an officer being rude. You know, we're not talking about a policy issue. We're talking about a criminal issue. If it's a criminal issue, then it's going to go to the state attorney for you guys. I think that's the same for where I'm at. I don't know. I've never been in that realm, so I don't want to speak out of my ass on that. But I'm pretty sure it's the same. I think that's what my buddy said that came on and was talking about it. But something is minor. Let's say, for instance, an officer swore at you and it wasn't appropriate. There's no justification for it. But then that sergeant or supervisor who overlooks that case sees that and unfounds it, says, no, that officer didn't swear at you. But he did. And it's on video. When that sergeant gets caught, that sergeant's fucked.
Yes. Worse than the officer who cursed.
Right. Because the officer that cursed, he's just going to get administrative paperwork, unless he's got an asshole for a chief, I guess. Or it just depends on how egregious it is. I'm just giving you a common thing that happens. Officer curses. It doesn't have to be at you. He just curses around you, and that's a administrative violation. That's not a criminal issue. But if anybody in IA tries to cover that up, and this is the point me and Joe are making here, it isn't worth your career to cover that stuff up. Mm-hmm. And that's what I want people to understand that are like, oh, they just covered up. Would you risk your career? We have kids, and you don't have to have kids, but we have careers, we have ambitions, we've done all this work to get there. I'm not covering up for Joe because he swore at somebody.
Absolutely. Right.
He's going to take his slap on the wrist like he should. That's his fault. Mm-hmm. So this is kind of the point that I'm trying to get to the public that has such distrust. I don't know another way to put it, but that is something that I really want to make clear, is like, I have best friends. I have guys that have bled for me, pulled me out of the ringer, and vice versa. But when they screw up, they screw up. It's better to just take your licks on something minor.
Absolutely.
Than it is to try to cover up dumb shit. Now, if it's something criminal, I sure as shit am not covering up for you. Holding police accountable.
I'm telling you right now, we've had cases, and I'm telling you for sure, we have had cases where officers had wrongdoing, and if they just would have been honest, nothing would have happened. Maybe they would have gotten a disciplinary report or something being written up. Yes. Maybe, but because they stuck to a lie that we knew was a lie, they lost their jobs, lost everything they've worked for their entire life because they refused to tell the truth. In our line of work, if you can't tell the truth, then we don't want you. Period. Yeah.
And this is something maybe you can do a 2.0 version on your book. We're talking about training officers in the ingrained culture of policing and good, bad, indifferent, whatever it is. Something else that, now that we're talking about it, that I think will improve policing alone to avoid things like that is training cops on the process. I've never been trained what the disciplinary process is like, or what the investigation process is like if you are wrapped up in IA. I've learned through other officers, and I'm not saying train them so they don't lie later on. Like, if you're going to lie, you're going to lie. But I think that stress of the unknown can cause people to act in ways they don't normally act.
I think you're right. I think you hit it right, hit the nail right in the head on that. And I think in another part of my book that I talk about is having ethics and bias training yearly to reaffirm this is the stance of the police department. This is the stance of the community we serve. Mm-hmm. And you're either with that or you're not. And right. We have to ingrain that in people. This is what we are. This is our standards. And that's a perfect opportunity to make sure people understand that those who don't and go against the grain, yeah, and want to reminisce on old times, we're not putting up with that.
Yep. And for cops listening, they're going, oh, ethical bullshit, blah, 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 blah. Hear me out. One of the oldest arguments is you either have morals or you don't. You either have ethics or you don't. You can't be taught that. Okay, let's go with that argument. I'm not gonna say you're right or you're wrong. However, I want you to think let's just stay with U.S. citizens for right now, because that's what we'll go with. You're patriotic, right? You love your country. Okay. Good, bad, indifferent. I keep saying that a lot this episode. Good, bad, indifferent. You love your country. But when you hear the national anthem, does it not re-energize that juice just a little bit? Just a little bit on that. Or another good example, 9/11. Terrible. If you would ask anybody how much they love their country prior to that, they would say, I love the United States. Tell me where your love was at after we got attacked. I guarantee it was higher than you.
12th was a different day.
Higher than you ever thought it would be. So that's how I look at the ethics training. Yes, you have ethics. I'm glad you do. But let's rejuice it every once in a while. Rejuice it, and it keeps you. I'm not going to say that you guys are going off the path. You're not. It's just a re-energizer. That's it.
But it's not just that. I think it's a good opportunity to expose officers to maybe a situation that an officer, similar to a geographical area they're in, that went through an integrity issue or went through something that an officer found himself into, not realizing, he or she didn't realize, or this is what happened, and then they lied about it, and this is what happened. Like, sometimes telling officers the truth about some of these investigations on how did they go from something as simple as this to this. And I think if officers heard that and was like, wow, like maybe that wouldn't have happened if they would have been honest about it. But those are things that people didn't share until now. I know my agency, we just recently promoted a bunch of sergeants, and I went in and I gave an ethics talk to them, and I spoke about some of the closed cases that we've had and some of the issues that caused them to be where they are now. What escalated them, what caused it, and what could have the supervisor have done before it happened. It's so important for people to realize that you have all the power. You could stop not just your wrongdoing, but or recognize the wrongdoings in others, and save your job, save their job, save the agency, save the community member that's going through whatever it is they're going through, and just handle it there on the spot, and empower people. I don't know if you ever saw what happened here in Sunrise, Florida, with the female officer who tried to stop a sergeant recently.
Oh, and he choke slammed her?
He choked her, yeah. He turned around and choked her.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, that I was like, holy shit. And
she's a rookie, but you know what? She had the confidence to stop that man from doing something that she felt was going to be immoral and unethical.
Right. And she
could say whatever they want, but she did the right thing.
And I think she did it in a non-confrontational, I would hope my buddies at work would do it, not call me out. Hey dude, you're being a dick or whatever, but just, pull on my butt. Hey Levine, come on, let's go over here. I got this. Right. That is basically what she did. And that's the way to go. And, I'm not going to say whoever that guy was, that sergeant or whatever, was a bad dude, but obviously his emotions, maybe sleep deprived or whatever. I don't want to make excuses for him, but we all have bad days too. We're human. This job has a cumulative, post-traumatic stress to it. And we are all susceptible of exactly what that guy did, but he did it. And now he needs to be held accountable for it. The trick is trying to avoid not to get to that point. I'm a big believer of forgiveness and a big believer of we are human. The public we deal with is human. So we got to be forgiving. And that's one of the things we're lacking in this community and police dynamic, a first responder dynamic, because even firefighters are getting shit lately. Who doesn't love firefighters? I mean, they're being ambushed. That's crazy. How are you going to ambush them? All they do is help. There's no enforcement to those guys. So I get, I'm trying to figure out how to make those relationships heal and work for the better. And the thing that we need is for every mistake, you can't just get shit canned. I don't expect the public to get fired for making a mistake.
But I think the issue is the lack of honesty. I think And it's like you said, cops are scared. They're scared to tell the truth. They're scared to say, yeah, I did that. Yeah, I messed up.
Right.
They're afraid to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I can say this, my particular agency has proven in the past on some of the results of investigations. If you come into the office and say, look, I did that, or I know, I did it because of this. I didn't realize that I was violating this by doing that. It's not that we swept it under the rug. We churched it up to what it was. Some of it was a training issue. Some of it was, the agency messed up here. We didn't really define what we were looking for. We didn't define in our policy. It's a policy failure. Or, that sergeant or that officer messed up. Let's give them a disciplinary report and keep it moving. And they're going to learn from that mistake. But it's like, it's all about integrity. If you don't have integrity and you can't come in there and be honest about what happened, that we know what you did, the fact that you're lying is worse. Because if you're lying about that, what else are you lying to us about?
Yeah.
And any community would back us on that move, that we have to eradicate you from the department because we don't know what else are you lying about. If you're just honest, and especially if agencies took that position, like, look, we're gonna work with people who are honest here. Now, if they come saying, yeah, I've been violating people's civil rights for the past 15 years, that's a whole nother animal, Or they're gonna tell us, a freaking grass field with bodies or something. That's a whole nother story.
Dexter.
Yeah. Back to Dexter.
Yeah, back to Dexter. We were talking about South Florida and all that, and I have watched Dexter probably 8-9 times, especially with the new season. I don't know. I think it's my love for that whole South Florida vibe. I love it. I was telling Joe before we started recording this, like, my wife and I, we go there 3-4 times a year. Little 4-day mini vacation, definitely for our anniversary. Our anniversary is New Year's Eve. That transition, we got married like on December 31st into January 1st was our reception. So we try to go at least to Miami, that area, every year for that, because it's fairly inexpensive, especially that time of year. And man, it's just the food, the people. It's just a great area, man. I love it. And like I said, I think the show Dexter is what got me to even remotely think about going there. And haven't looked back since, sir. You've got it going on in that area for sure. You got it made.
Can't complain.
Have you ever done boat patrol or anything like that?
No, but I wish I did.
I know. I
did the motorcycle thing on the beach. And that's about, I did ATV for a while, and that was fun.
Hell yeah.
But, yeah, I loved it.
Damn.
I used to work in Surfside. I don't know if you've heard of the town of Surfside.
I've heard of Surfside.
That's unfortunate with that building collapsed last summer.
That's probably why I've heard of Surfside.
Yeah, a lot of people heard, yeah.
Okay.
Awful.
My brother-in-law is a recently retired Clearwater, Florida homicide detective.
Oh, it's not too far from here.
So he's, I'm trying to get him to do a podcast and just talk about his time working, one, in homicide, and two, he is also a huge community policing guy. Would actually teach in colleges and stuff like that. And just, another person that is a mentor to me, growing up. I've dated my wife since 7th grade.
Wow.
And he became like my freshman year of high school, basically. I think he started showing up into the picture dating my wife's older sister. So I've always been around. And then this dude, he's an adult. He was a cop already. And so he was a big influence as far as my policing stuff was. When I made detective, he came out. They flew him out, like, hit it. He came out for my promotion ceremony and stuff. But
that's awesome.
Another awesome Florida cop that I would love to get on here. And I think our episode with him is going to be about departments turning their back on you and not supporting their police. And that's another issue.
That's awful leadership.
It's another issue that we have. So, but that's neither here nor there, sir. Okay. So is there anything else, any more elements to the book that you want to bring up?
There's a couple that we've kind of touched on. Community policing is huge. It really is. There's no other policing method we should be working with besides that. It's really been a godsend for mending the relationships between agencies and the community. It's it takes away that militaristic vision people have on us, and it brings back the humanity to police work, and it brings back the humanity to the badge and the people who wear them, and the men and women who go out there every day and you know, and risk their lives for everybody. And it really, it is that bridge that everything. It's the bridge that carries all the vehicles that we have over to go ahead and build that trust. Without community policing, we just don't have a shot. We don't have a chance.
Yes. One of the difficulties I found with talking about community policing is I don't want community policing to overshadow the, I don't know. I'm not trying to put it in a military vernacular or whatever, but you need to have the warrior. You need to have the guardian. That's the newfangled term, guardian. We need the guardian. I need the guy that can have the conversations, talk to the community, be the, you know, the gardener, you know, because they say it's better to be a warrior in a garden or than a garden. Or I can't remember that saying. Damn it. I knew I was going to screw that up. But basically,
so you lost me on that one, bro.
Yeah, I know. I can't remember it's a whole art of war thing, but you need to have your officers ready. You know, they got to be ready for when that stuff does hit the fan, and you need a protector, but it can't be a protector all the time. You've got to be able to digress and come back down and be one with the community, not just a person that speaks at them, but be an invested person in it. And that's the hard part, to be invested, especially if you don't live there. I don't live in any of I don't even live in the city I work in, but I've made it a point to be vested in the areas I work, whether that be going and talking to my local businesses, having some crazy dude that wants to have a conversation about how many grains of sand are out in the parking lot at the time while I'm stopping in and grabbing, you know, a drink or whatever it is. Rather than letting everything annoy you and being cynical. Like, it's a hard part about balancing both of those in police work. I don't know how it is in the South, in Florida, because you guys have beaches. I don't have beautiful beaches and all that stuff over here. So maybe we're a little more disgruntled than the police in Florida.
I don't know. It seems like a problem or an issue across the country. You know, you have a lot of older officers, even some that are younger, they're disgruntled. You know, they got them or they have this projected image of what they expected police work to be, and it's not what they expected. You know, it's completely different than what maybe they were told by people that were, you know, either were at some point officers or what they see in the movies or whatever. And it's just not what they expected. So they're already cynical about everything, or they got burned for doing something, you know, that's you know, relatively small infraction they got caught doing. They got held accountable for it. Other officers do it. It never came to light, so they got away with it.
Yeah.
And so they just feel some type of way about it, you know. And unfortunately, that energy carries on to his or her other coworkers, especially new officers. It's an issue, you know. And I think that's where agency cultures come in, and the agency itself, the culture that they set, not just the agency, but the people of the agency, the officers, you know, the backbone, the entire road patrol, whatever if they don't allow those energies to, you know, infringe on everybody else or change the perception of the agency, then it can go, you know, great places. But if you don't hold it, if the other officers allow the negative energy to continue, it's only going to manifest into something stronger, more prevalent. And at some point, that voice is louder than whatever the agency could ever push out, as what is expected.
Yeah. And that's where I start putting pressure on supervisors. I think that is one of our biggest fails in police work, is our supervisors fail to supervise. You see that cancer on the team, the guy that's salty, that's pissed off all the time, that, you know, whether it's a bunch of self-imposed pain or whatever it is, getting burned. You know, I always use cursing because that's the easiest one. I curse all the fucking time. I curse.
Yeah, I'm just as guilty.
I curse in the police car. I'll be talking to a citizen and I'll curse. Like, it just comes out. I don't mean it. And I'm not cursing at them. I never curse at people. If I'm cursing at you, there's a purpose. I'm trying to avoid a use of force. That's usually what it is. I'm like, all right, sir, you need drop the gun. Drop the gun now. Drop the gun. Drop the fucking gun. Like, because next is you're getting tased or you're getting shot or whatever it is. Like, there's a purpose behind cursing. It's still wrong. It still can be a violation, but at least I can articulate, like, look, this is why I swore.
I don't know many agencies, though, that would hold an officer accountable if it was in those particular set of circumstances.
Right.
Right. You understand what I'm saying? If it was brought out of you, in a situation that brought you out of character because you had a level of threat, then I don't think any agency, I know mine don't, and I hope other agencies alike don't hold officers responsible for something so ridiculous like that.
Yeah, but the point that I'm getting to is, like, if most officers, when they get dinged, it's cursing's an easy one to get. It gets caught on your body cam. Shoot, I was in the car. I didn't get dinged for it, but I'm in the car. I didn't realize my camera was going. I'm an American Idol when I'm in the car by myself because I have the radio going and it's on my Spotify, and so I'm listening to my music and I rock out. Some of them have curse words, so I could easily have been dinged for something like that. If my Sarge is listening to the podcast, don't
earmuffs.
Earmuffs. Don't leave me alone. So, but that is something that officers could easily get dinged for. What was the point? Where was I going with that? I don't even know now.
You were talking about how officers get disgruntled when they see.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. So if I were to get dinged for that, I may not sing in the car as much for at least a small period of time. But when sergeants see that, they see that officer getting disgruntled, like, it's on you to save the team because that cancer grows way faster than you expect. It is a damn wildfire.
It is.
And I love that you pointed out the newer officers because the newer officers are the most manipulated. And I don't mean like that this officer's out to manipulate that cop. It's just the nature of the beast. You're around it, and a lot of rookies look up to the most senior officers.
Right. Because they're sponges. All these young men and women, they're sponges, and they take in everything around them.
Yes.
Energy. The way someone handles a call, the way we talk, the way the seasoned talks to the community, they're going to replicate that.
Yep.
And it's that simple, something as small as that.
And if you're wondering, well, why do they gravitate to that guy or whatever? Because he's made it. He didn't get fired, and he's not dead. Those are two big fears of rookies a lot of times. So if he made it that far and he's not dead, he must be doing something right. So whether it goes against their personality or not, those are some of the things we cling to when we first start. And I'm at 100% disclosure. I have fallen victim to the negativity myself, being around a salty person. Like, fuck, I can't believe I got to go to this call.
Everybody has. I think any officer at this stage of their career, where we are, at our age, can look back at their career and say, I was never like that. That's bullshit.
Yeah.
I think every officer during their course of their career has had their highs, had their lows.
Yep.
It is what it is. They've been there.
Yeah. I've been there riding a sheet, which and you talk to anybody, it's not really my personality, but what riding a sheet is you handled your call, you're done for the most part. Maybe there's some little things that you got to shore up, and then another call pops up that you could easily go handle, but you don't want to do it because Joe didn't handle his call, so I'm waiting for him to take the call. And I'm being I've lost focus. I'm not focused on what's good for the community that I swore to protect and serve. I'm letting a call hold because I'm making a point to Joe. Joe, you need to fucking take this call. I ain't taking this call. He's been avoiding calls all week. I see him. He's lazy motherfucker, And
that's exactly you can't be more honest with that. That's exactly what's going on. And it still happens, out there now.
It happens today. The thing is like I said, forgiveness, being willing to work with police and stuff like that. I'm trying to have an honest conversation, let you know some of the culture of policing that you don't normally get to hear, and understand that, like, I recognized it about myself, and it was time to move. It was time to change it up. I needed a change, and that was how I started recognizing. I'm like, man, I'm avoiding calls. That's not like me. I'm like, I love calls. Why am I avoiding calls? And so it was, you know, I pointed that out to myself though. I didn't have a sergeant pull it out. And that's kind of something I'm getting to is supervisors are, I think, the most crucial part. And I'm talking I guess it's police sergeant level is probably the same mostly across the nation, that you're the supervisor. That's what you need to focus on with your team. Get those positive guys, man. One positive dude on the team, just it is infectious. I love having a go-getter on you get a rookie on the team and he's like, let's go look at this and go. I'm like, all right, dude, I ain't felt like this in a minute. Let's go do that. I got that. So I love getting a rookie, energetic guy. It reinvigorates me it sparks that like, oh yeah, this is why we do this. So
no, you're absolutely right.
But then, and that's what, like, for you, like, this is what makes me excited about your book is just the fact that you're 38 years old. You've been in the game since 05 and you're writing a book about this that is going to improve. I saw like a mosquito or something trying to get your camera's really good.
I don't know if it's that or a bat. I don't know what it was.
So I'm excited. Like that type of stuff. I don't have the patience to write a book, but that type of stuff invigorates me and makes me excited for the job again. And it makes me excited that a guy like you is going to try to go in that direction. That's a smart perspective I've never considered. I never thought of that before. And in all of the cultural training that we've gotten since the Obama movement of the 21st century policing model, which I'm sure has been something that y'all had to look into, the 4 pillars or 3 pillars or whatever it is.
Right. It gets studied all the time, but the question is it anyone acting on it? Are agencies changing to work on the things that they said we should be working on?
Right. No, they're giving you the material to say, hey, this is what we should be learning about.
Should be doing. Isn't that great? Okay, well let's do it.
Yes. Yes. So I'm on board, man. I like the idea of getting into the nitty gritty. Like one of the things I love to point out when I teach recruits and stuff is do your homework on the New Orleans police corruption that went on there. That was huge because there was a lot to learn from that. Yes, the police fucked up. Yes, they were in bed with drug dealers and stuff like that.
Like Miami in the 80s during the cocaine cowboy days. I mean, there's how many movies on it now? Right.
So with that, look at all the good stuff that happened from that shitty time in policing.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of good stuff that happened. And yes, you need to know the bad to understand how the good came about.
Absolutely.
And I think what you're talking about in his book, Police Fragility, Fragile, it's French. It's Italian. Yeah. So that's what you're alluding to in a way. I could be wrong, but that's what I see from it. Is that we are going to see that. And yes, here's the lows, but here's the positive from it. Here's when you're dealing with the public, this is what they may be thinking about. Whether they know they're thinking about that or not. And you've got to be aware of it. If you're not aware of it, you're going to come in at the wrong angle.
Right.
And that fucking mosquito is going. I see it fly by your head. I'm just waiting for the wham.
I'm waiting for it too.
Okay. So the book is released already or is coming out?
No, it's already out.
Okay. So the book Police Fragility is out. You can get that at Barnes & Noble. Now, he doesn't have it yet, but he will have a website that's coming out very soon. We were trying to get it on here so I could release it, but he hasn't got his domain secured. Do you have any idea what it may be? No, you don't want to risk it. You don't want to send people.
I don't want to risk it because I'll say something and then it's different when by the time it goes through. So.
I gotcha. Well, when the book does, or when the website and all that stuff does come out, just let me know. I will release that for you on all of my sites and whatnot. But what does the future hold for you now as a commander? Are you going to move up? Are you looking to be a chief anywhere? What's
Honestly, I don't know. I want to promote change. I want to be a change agent for all of us, and hope people buy in on that, and they want the same thing that I envision for us as a law enforcement community.
Mm-hmm.
And I really don't know. I'm happy where I'm at now. I have very loyal, and I love the agency that I'm with. My community is amazing. I have no intentions of leaving. I'm going to continue to be there until I retire.
Nice.
But then life after that, I don't know. Who knows? I have no idea. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing and see where it takes me.
Well, brother, let me ask you this. Would you ever be interested in, the point or the title of my show is Two Cops, One Donut. I don't always get two cops on here. Like right now we're good. You're a cop. I'm a cop. We're two cops, one donut.
Worked
so, my unofficial co-host, like he can get on here when we have time, but it doesn't always work out. But would you be interested in coming back and then helping me co-host ever?
Of course. Absolutely.
Because you definitely have a like mindset. You see where I'm going and I see where you're going. Right. So I think you and I are trying to do and accomplish the same type of thing. So it would be fun to have you on here and get kind of it
would be my honor. It'd be great.
A Southeast flavor to it. Me with my Midwest and Southwest flavor now. I like having those two perspectives. I still say pop though, instead of soda.
Sorry to hear that.
I know, right? But okay. So you're going to stay where you're at. I love that. It's funny what community support does.
Yes.
When you have community support, I love my department. Yeah. Absolutely love it. I love the citizens. Where I am at, they vote every 4 or 5 years for a 0.5-cent tax. And that gets us like 16 to 24 million a year that goes towards the department. But it passes with like a 85, 95% approval rating, which is like it's a thermometer for the police.
Absolutely. That's solidarity support right there. They're behind you guys.
And if we weren't doing our job, I guarantee that vote would dip. And I think with the leader, especially the leadership I have right now, my chief said he would be on the show. So once he's on the show, maybe I can start saying where I work. Maybe it'll be my get out of jail free card. I don't know, but he said he'd be on the show, so I'm excited to get him on here. And he is one of the, if not the best community policing guy that I've ever had the privilege of meeting. Yeah, I'm kissing his ass right now. So thanks, Chief. But no, he really is very genuine guy. At his level, with the size of the department that he's dealing with, it's really rare to see a person that leads with their heart rather than political.
That's funny because my chief's in the same exact position.
And yours is a female, right?
Exactly. She's a female, and you're pretty much describing her to a T, which is ironic because here she has and he has arms extensions of their leadership sitting on a podcast preaching the same things.
Right.
Just think about that. And like-minded chiefs.
Yeah.
It's incredible, right?
That's a weird correlation, right?
Yeah.
When we get offline, have your chief, if she's interested, reach out. I would love to get.
Oh, I will. I'll definitely ask.
I'd love to get her on, and you can be like, "This is this weird guy out in Texas," but see if she wants to do it. Well, brother, I know you're coming up on your time. We've hit about an hour and a half. I think this was great. I am actually so happy you reached out. I put it out there for people all the time. Hey, if you want to talk, just send me an email, send me a message, whatever it is. I can get you. Did I ask you any real questions prior to you coming on?
No, which surprised me, to be honest with you.
Yeah, because, all right, let's say I was wrong. Let's say you're crazy, batshit crazy. How fun of a podcast would that have been for me?
Would have been a blast.
I would have had a blast with it. It doesn't matter. Yeah. So for me, I'm going to get a podcast out of you. Doesn't matter if you're batshit crazy or whatever. So when I tell people, like, seriously, reach out. If you're interested in being a guest, I will try to make that happen. I will give you my calendar. I'll let you know. And if we can work out a date, great. Let's do it. And I don't want to ask a bunch of questions because the more I know prior, the less engaging and genuine it seems to me.
Right.
That's just
no,
me.
It flows so much better when you really don't know.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And you catch me going through brain farts all the time, and you saved me on the one, so I appreciate that. But no, brother, I appreciate you being on. Do you have any closing thoughts? Anything you want to get out there to the public?
I just hope people realize that agencies are we hear you. We hear the people that feel like we're not there for the betterment of everybody, and we are, and that we're moving in the direction of showing the communities that we are, and give us the time. Nothing was done overnight, so give us the time that we need to continue the path that we're on and be the change that we know it's going to come to.
I agree. I like that. All right, brother. Well, I appreciate you being on. And I can't wait to have you back on once you get your book out there and we find out the updates and all that good stuff.
I appreciate it.
All right, brother. Take it easy.
All right, be safe.